Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post game live. I'm going to chill. I'm going to try my best to not hide excitement, but just chill a bit on the excitement. But it's hard not to when the Warriors deliver a performance like that, a 132-106 demolition, really, of the Sacramento Kings of Golden One Center to kickstart their post All-Star break schedule. Man, like it's so rare for a game like this where I can't think of a single negative. Like I legitimately cannot think of a single negative. I suppose if we're clutching at things like DeMar DeRozan went for what 34 points. Like okay, we could have guarded him better, I suppose, but like Golden State's defense as a whole was excellent. They kept the Kings to 34.4% shooting from 3-point range, forced them into 21 turnovers, won the points off turnover battle 38-5 in this game. Even like individually, everyone played well. Literally everyone played well for the Warriors. 4 20-point scorers led by Buddy Hield and Moses Moody, who each had 22 points, were both 8 of 11 from the floor, both 5 of 8 from three-point range. Brandon Pajemski continued his good form, 21 points. Steph had 20, but didn't have to do a whole lot, like was really efficient, 7 of 13, 4 of 9. Like, the Kings do what they normally do in doubling him. And this time, the Warriors were able to take advantage. There's been so many times recently or previously against Sacramento where the Warriors have been unable to take advantage of Steph getting double teamed and being in, 4-on-3 situations. And they just did it perfectly in this game. And it meant that there are a bunch of guys who scored the ball. Again, 4 guys in double figures. Jimmy Butler had 17. Quentin Post had a barrage of threes in the second quarter. Like everyone played well down to the guys in garbage time. Like my man Kevin Knox, who I actually wanted to see for some legitimate minutes in this game, played his first minutes in the NBA in over a year. Just 3 minutes there at the end, knocked down his only 3, made a tough layup as well. So like this was the perfect game, I guess. Like you couldn't have asked for much more. And to be totally honest, like going into this game, I was semi-nervous because I'm like, there's actually some expectation around this team. Like I fully expect this team to win, which a game against a talented Kings team in Sacramento, based on what we've seen from the Warriors over the last couple of months, I suppose, since they started the season 12-3, like I was at a point where I just didn't expect them to win any game. And now I kind of go into this one again against a reasonable team on their home floor, and I fully expect them to win. And this is kind of the impact that I think primarily Jimmy Butler has had on this team, where now the expectations are at a point where, again, you play a game like this and you just expect to win. And in saying that, like I was fully expecting maybe a little bit of a letdown kind of thing, and that's why I was nervous about it. But I mean, the Warriors just came out. They kind of used that, early run in the second quarter. They, I think, were plus 14 in Steph's stint on the bench in the first half. Again, Quentin Post hit like 3 threes in a 4 or 5 minute stretch. They just dominated during that period. And then, the Kings made a little bit of a run late in the second quarter, early third quarter, but the Warriors were able to steady. And man, like it's difficult. It's difficult not to get up and about and excited for the Warriors right now. And I think I just have to continue reminding myself, like this team is still ninth. There's still a couple of games back from the LA Clippers in the 6th seed. Like there is still an element of this where the Warriors are probably still too far back to make any significant noise this season. But there is still, as Steve pointed out in his press conference, there is still 26 games. So while they do find themselves still in a bit of a tricky hole, they are capable and they do have the opportunity to be able to turn that around and create something really special here over the final 26 games. Get to your guys' comments. Dan Decker says we are 8-0 when Moody starts. Yeah, it seems like this starting lineup is now going to be the thing moving forward. And I hesitate on that slightly because I feel like we've said that before, where the Warriors have a starting lineup over a period of time that inevitably changes and there's some issue with it and whatever else. And I have an issue with Draymond being the starting center. I just don't think that's sustainable. But maybe over the last portion of the season here and going into the playoffs, it's something you can do. And then you kind of look back or sort of look at it in the off season and what you may be able to do come then when free agency arrives and potential trades and stuff like that. So we'll wait and see, but that's a topic for the off season. And for now, it looks like Draymond at the 5 is kind of what's going to happen, and that Steph, Pods, Jimmy, and Moses are the 4 guys. And that's incredibly small. And, you're going to have nights where I think you get exploited somewhat by that. But it also brings some versatility defensively that you don't get when you've necessarily got Quentin Post out on the floor. And it obviously gives you the offensive versatility that you don't get when a guy like Kevon Looney's out on the floor, or TJD that we've had previously as well. So it looks like this is going to be the lineup moving forward. And based on this performance and what we've seen recently, it's pretty hard to argue against it. There's a really nice balance going on there with, the spacing threats of Steph and Moses, obviously. And then, having a couple of guys in Pods and Jimmy who can handle the ball and actually play make for you and take the pressure off Steph, I think is really important as well. Like Draymond, like his numbers weren't necessarily huge in this game, 6 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, but I just thought he quarterbacked things beautifully. He just set the table really well. And Jimmy, didn't have to do a whole lot. 17 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, but kind of just fit in perfectly and allowed his teammates to shine. And I think that's been one of the great things about this, is that he's impacting the Warriors so dramatically without overtaking, right? Without coming in and hijacking the offense and saying, all right, I'm here to stamp my authority. This is how we're going to play now. It feels like he's having such a big impact while still playing within the Warrior system kind of thing, and allowing his teammates to thrive and make his teammates better, which is what we've seen with Pods, especially. I think, again, I really love Pods, what he can do, being able to impact in a number of different ways. I was, worried after Schroeder got dealt that, hey, maybe there's going to be too much Pods in terms of ball handling and playmaking. But I think when he plays alongside Steph or Jimmy, and of course he's going to play alongside one of those guys at all times, he can be like that second or third ball handler playmaker. And just having another guy out there, and this is why Pods, I think, is in the starting lineup over Buddy, is that having a guy out there who can theoretically dribble, pass, and shoot, I think that's super valuable. And that's what the Warriors have got. And I feel like the roster previously has just lacked guys like that. They've lacked multi-dimensional guys. They've had too many guys that are, offensive players but don't provide enough defensively, or defensive guys that don't provide any spacing or scoring on offense. And now they've got a starting lineup here with, Steph, Pods, Butler, Moody, and Draymond. They've got a starting lineup that everyone can kind of do a bit of everything. And that's really refreshing to see from a Warrior standpoint, I think. Robbie P says Moody and Pods really progressing. I think they've gone under the radar slightly, because I think we now look at this as there's a big 2, I suppose, with Steph and Jimmy. Then Draymond's there. And then I think we also see Kuminga as if he can really develop and be that third guy offensively, then this team could really be something. And so there's almost a lot of I'm not calling it a big 4, but those are the 4 guys that I suppose we really focus on. And Pods and Moody are at that number 5, number 6 mark. And they're going under the radar a little bit, but I think they're equally important in what this team can do. Because if Pods is really just a genuinely good starting caliber guard that you can lock in next to Steph every game and he's going to play well for you, that's huge. That's huge. And if Moses can be the guy that we've long envisioned, right? This 3-and-D, 6'6", prototypical wing who can shoot 40% from 3 and guard a little bit on the other end, this is perfect. This is what we've wanted Moses Moody to be, as fans for quite a few years. And Pods, again, credit to him, shout out to him, had a really rough start to the season, drew a lot of criticism. Some of that was brought on himself by what he said in the offseason, but his return here, his turnaround, now over a pretty long stretch, going back to the final few games before he even got that 12-game abdominal injury, he's been brilliant. And, he took 20 shots in this game, only 9 of 22 of 9. But again, I think, he's going to be the one when you've got Steph and Jimmy, and Moses, I suppose, is a more of a 3-point threat. I think Pods will still find himself in a lot of situations where he's got to take shots and make shots. And again, he wasn't overly efficient in this game necessarily, but I just like his aggressiveness in taking the shots when they're available. And yeah, you can't speak too much more highly of those two young guys right now. It's gonna be super interesting to see when Kuminga comes back into the mix because I think I've been really excited and I continue to be really excited to see what this team could be with JK back in the mix. But at the same time, the team looks this good right now that I'm also nervous that I don't want JK to come back and shake things too much. And it's going to be important for him to come back and just add to what the Warriors have, built here over the past 5 games with Jimmy Butler, rather than necessarily trying to force things because we know, he's not only coming off injury, but of course, like he's going to be a restricted free agent in the offseason. He's going to want to once again, showcase and prove his worth to try and get a bag in free agency. Like that's just the reality of the situation. But trying to balance that with just fitting back in to what the Warriors are doing so well at the moment is going to be vitally important. Then it says Kings had 22 turnovers. That defense was really good. Yeah, absolutely. Like Warriors are locked in both ends of the floor. I don't think anything really, showcased that more than Steph in the first quarter, where Keegan Murray kind of got that offensive rebound, and then Steph just ripped it away from him and ran down the floor in transition. So the Warriors were pretty locked in on this game, and I think hopefully this is what we see moving forward over the final, 26 games of the season, and hopefully moving into the playoffs is a team that is just ready to go, playing 110% from the opening whistle and really providing that, intensity on both ends of the floor because they are capable of being really good on both ends. AES is happy the buddy's in a position where he's effective as a role player and not play like a main character. Yeah, I think this move back to the bench, I mean, we got to recall like the first 8 games of the season where he put up, 7 games of 20 plus points. Like he was a bench player. And then all of a sudden, like he got, with Melton going down, obviously, I think that was the biggest point was, he was thrust into a starting role and it just never really worked. And having him come off the bench, I think, can hopefully he can return to some of that early season form. And that's what we saw in this game, 22 points. Again, 5-8 from 3-point range, played 20, nearly 26 minutes, which when he's hitting shots like this and playing like this, running the floor well, like that's fine. I'm all for Buddy Hield playing 26 minutes in a game where he's firing like this. There will be some other games where, he's not hitting his shots and therefore Steve needs to shorten the leash and only play maybe 15, 16 minutes, something like that. But I'm sure that will come. I was a bit surprised, I suppose, that he ended the first half over Moses, and it kind of hurt the Warriors a bit with that 3-point shooting foul that Buddy committed on DeMar DeRozan. But all in all, a great Buddy Hield game, as it was just a great Warrior game. And he continues to be, a pretty big part here of Warrior success. Like, we know the record of when I think they might have lost recently when he had 18 plus points, but what are they? I'm not sure what it is now, but it must be like 10-1 or 11-1 when he scores 18 plus points. So he continues to be a pretty big factor here, as much as fans have not necessarily liked that over recent months. Maddie says, I think Jimmy Butler could have been a little bit more assertive on offense. I thought he was fine. Again, I just think the way he's fitting in really well, there's going to be a time and place where he needs to get aggressive. I agree with that. And particularly if the Warriors make the playoffs, we're going to be expecting playoff Jimmy. But I also think he missed some layups early in the game that, I mean, the Warriors missed a heap of layups early in the game. They corrected that in the second half, and particularly from the second quarter onwards. But Jimmy missed some layups that he should have made. Like this should have been a 20-point performance from him. Again, gets the free throw line, goes 7 of 7 from there. Perfect. So he just played really well. And without being super dominant because he didn't necessarily need to be, which is great. Like you want to be able to win these games with Steph and Jimmy kind of just chilling, like just chilling and, impacting the game and playing well, but not necessarily having to go for 30, 35 plus points kind of thing. Because, there's going to be stages where you do need that. Rancuno says, I hope Moody will still get consistent minutes when JK comes back. I think he will, because I think there is a spacing element to him that's important that JK won't be able to provide. Now, whether he's still part of like closing lineups and stuff like that, I think based on what we're seeing right now, you're not going to bring JK back and have him upset the starting lineup. I think I have had the thought, and I mentioned on the podcast episode in the last 24 hours that, maybe JK has a few games back and then maybe you trial him as a starter next to Jimmy and Draymond in the front court. But with the spacing that Moody provides and how well and how good it looks right now, I don't think you'd change that. So I'd be surprised if JK comes back into a starting role, things can always change. But right now, it's almost a situation where he needs to come back. Obviously, he'll be on a minutes restriction and then really be that sixth man basically for the Warriors who can give them 15 to 20 points off the bench, if not more, and still hopefully play 30 plus minutes. Now, where they come from, who knows right now? I still think there's minutes to be cut down here for some players in order to accommodate Kuminga's return. I mean, Guy Santos played 13 minutes. Gary Payton II played 15 minutes. To me, that's 27 minutes that could just go to Kuminga when he returns. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Robbie says, I think that JK will be the sixth man with the current starting lineup. These are your comments before I just delved into that. So we're on the same page there. Maddie says, if JK comes back in good form, this team can make some noise in the playoffs. Yeah, I agree. They should be a playoff team at minimum based on what we've seen over these last 5 games, based on Kuminga's imminent return, based on their easy schedule coming up, based on their lack of injuries. Other teams have difficult schedules and have some injury worries right now. Again, things can change, but right now, at this second as I speak, the Warriors should be a playoff team. And once there, I think they can be really dangerous and a team that, opposing teams and teams at the top of the Western Conference don't necessarily want to face. I have a mate who goes for the Thunder, and I keep telling him, I'm like, I don't think OKC want to see Golden State in the playoffs. They don't want to see us. So I don't necessarily want that matched up to come to fruition in the first round. I'd like the Warriors to hopefully get the 6 or 7 seed, but it would make for a bit of banter with a mate of mine, that's for sure. AES says Butler being unselfish affects the team. Yeah, he's been so good fitting in. Rakuno says just play the 5 best players as starters: Steph, Moses, Pods in brackets, Kuminga, Jimmy, Dre. I believe this is the best lineup to reach our goal. I think you'll probably close with Kuminga, and then either you probably most of the time close with Pods, but then maybe there's times where you could close with Moody instead. So it's it'll still be on a game by game basis, I think. But I think you've got a pretty reasonable top 6 there. Buddy's probably your top 7. Looney's probably your top 8. I think, again, I spoke about it on the podcast episode. That's probably your top 8, and then you're going to get some Quentin Post minutes. You're going to get some Gary Payton II minutes in there as well. And I think that's the other really beneficial thing about the Butler trade is that the Warriors sent out Andrew Wiggins and 3 role players that were playing reasonable minutes throughout the course of the season with the Warriors. And now, Steve just doesn't have those guys to turn to. In saying that, they still have some depth, and that's the perfect thing is, I think they have the right amount of depth now where you do have guys you can turn to. I'm looking at Kevin Knox in those 3 garbage time minutes thinking, I feel like this guy could play. And so, I just think there's the perfect amount of depth right now for the Warriors, which makes things a lot easier for Steve, and I think that's super important. Thendex says we are now the 9th seed. I'm so happy we didn't get Levine. Yeah, Zach didn't have a great game. What did he finish with? 5 of 12 shooting, 2 of 7 from 3, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, was a minus 24 in nearly 34 minutes. DeRozan had it going, but everyone else aside from that, Sabonis was okay, 14, 14, and 9, but I don't think he killed us by any means. Monk, had each of their starters had double figures, but I just thought we guarded really well. And their bench looks pretty average to me. Ellis didn't make a shot, went 0 of 6, 0 of 4. LaRavia, 0 of 5, 0 of 2. I think he might be a reasonable pickup, but didn't have a great game this one. Valanciunas, not huge impact, got torched by Quentin Post, 3-point shooting there early in the second quarter. Lyles didn't take a shot. Markelle Fultz, I like what Markelle Fultz did for the Kings, to be honest. Kind of provided a little bit of a spark in an otherwise disappointing second half for them. He's probably someone I wouldn't have minded the Warriors targeting, but it is what it is. Can't complain too much after a performance like this. AES says revenge game next. Yeah, Mavericks on Sunday. Early game, that is. Andre Iguodala's jersey retirement, which should be a big one and only add to the motivation for the Warriors to try and get a win there over Clay, Kyrie, and the Mavericks. So hopefully the Warriors can close that gap, which is now I think the Mavericks beat the Pelicans today. So what are we still at? 2 or 2.5 games? Just checking here. Timberwolves lost to the Rockets today, which is also a good result. 1.5 games. So the Clippers are currently 2.5 games ahead of in the 6th seed. The Timberwolves and Mavericks both 31 and 26, 1.5 games. So the Warriors closing in here and really have an opportunity, particularly given their ease of schedule that I've spoken about. Young West says, let's get hot and make a run and continue it into the postseason. Yeah, like with the schedule, like can this team, 26 games to go now, can you rattle off 18 to 20 wins? Possibly. Robbie says, I think JK on the bench will let him integrate slowly. AES says the first quarter defense really set the tone. Then Decker, I think my 22-8 run may actually happen. So difficult not to try and get too over the top here and too excited with what the Warriors are producing over the last 5 games. But they should be 5-0 with Butler. Like they should have won that Mavs game. They just didn't really rock up and play. It was their one disappointing performance. Other than that, it's been super positive. Val says Butler got us going on runs even when he's on the bench. I think just his presence as well, just having Jimmy on the floor at times where, the Kings or whoever you're coming up against make a little bit of a run. I think his presence, his ability to get to the free throw line just slows things down a little bit. And we know the Warriors, last time they played the Kings a month ago, they were up by 17 at halftime or whatever and collapsed in a heap. And you just feel so much more confident that that's not going to be the case now when you've got Jimmy Butler and you know that you're always going to have one of Steph or Jimmy on the floor at all times. So I think that's pretty big. Young West says, Pods, Moody, Buddy, 20-plus points tonight. Yep, add Steph to that as well. But those 3 guys certainly put on a show. Gamer FTP says, Looney should not be playing over TJD. Honestly need to be resting up for the playoffs. Sorry, but Looney should be 3rd string. I think that might happen in time, but for the moment, like Looney's having a good season. And I think he provides that defensive impact for you. And again, a game like today, like he doesn't put up huge numbers by any means, but he's part of a huge winning effort. What do you have? 2 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. Like I can see your point on why TJD might play, but I don't think that will necessarily happen. Vale says, Jimmy, apology tonight, maybe. Is that from me? I need to apologize to Jimmy. I suppose if you're talking about me wanting, I was pretty relentless in saying that I didn't particularly want Jimmy Butler before the trade deadline, and I do apologize for that. And I was wrong on that. I'll put my hand up. I'm always happy to admit my faults and my wrongs when it comes to my takes. And I just thought that Jimmy Butler was 35, injury prone, wanted a big contract, and that was not necessarily conducive to the Warriors going after him, and particularly having to give up Andrew Wiggins. And I couldn't be more wrong at this point. Like I was okay with the trade once I heard about the extension, because I think the biggest fear for me was just having Jimmy Butler, trading Andrew Wiggins, getting Jimmy Butler, and having Jimmy Butler walk in free agency after like 3 months. That was going to be my biggest fear. But the fact they gave him the extension straight away, albeit a big one, but it's only 2 years. It's not like it's a 4 or 5 year max and you're going to be paying him like, the 76ers are paying, Paul George all the way till he's like 38, 39. So, I was wrong. I'm happy to admit that Jimmy Butler's looking great for the Warriors so far, but I don't think I was the only one in that case either that wanted didn't really want Jimmy Butler on the team. Gamer of sorry, I'm just trying to catch up here. Empire says it would be nice if Potts could be more efficient from 3, but he still scores, so I guess it is fine. Well, he's been pretty efficient. Like if we go back, I'll just look up here. I'm going to go back to, I think probably there's a game against Minnesota here on the 8th of December. So let's just look it up. Brandon Pajemski. Actually, no. Because this is I know he missed 12 games in between, but this is a fairly big sample size now for pods. So since the 8th of December, Brandon Pajemski is averaging 11.8 points, 47% from the floor, 38.1% from 3-point range on nearly 5 attempts per game. If he's shooting 38%, from 3 on nearly 5 attempts, I am more than happy with that. That's great. That's perfectly fine. So we've got a pretty big stretch here now. That's for him a 22 game period. The Warriors have played 34, obviously, as a team, but for him, 22 games of shooting 38% on nearly 5 attempts. That's spectacular, really. Like, I mean, is he ever going to be like a 40% guy, like 42, 43% guy? Like, he's not an absolute sharpshooter, but if he can make defenses respect him, and then they'll have to if he's shooting 38% on 5 attempts a game, like that's enough for the defense to be having to be honed in on you. Fendex says, would you rather get 6 or 7, 8 than hopefully get the Thunder or Rockets in the first round? I think, and I said this on the podcast, I think I'd probably want to most avoid the Nuggets first. I just think Jokic, I just think he's the best player in the world, and the Warriors don't even have close to an answer for him. So I'd probably want to avoid the Nuggets most. Thunder would be next. And then anyone else, kind of like our chances. Rockets. I'd like to face the Rockets. I wouldn't mind facing the Grizzlies. In fact, I'd probably prefer, if I had to rank teams I wouldn't want to face, it goes Denver, OKC, Lakers. And so if you can somehow draw Houston or Memphis in the first round, that's probably a really good result. Red Sox says setup sounds great now. Did you get that new mic? No, it's still the new mic. On the podcast episode, I was able to do some editing, so that should sound better. I'm glad the live stream's sounding better, but I actually haven't done anything yet to fix that. So I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of an internet thing as well. There's been a couple of times when my internet's kind of cut in and out. Who knows? Empire says Sunday's also Jimmy's home game debut. Yeah, looking forward to that one. Crowd should be up and about. They would be up and about anyway with Clay coming back and with his jersey retirement. Rincona says, good thing about Pods taking this many shots this game is he wasn't shot chucking. He just took what the defense gave him. So I'm fine with him taking more shots than the main guys. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. When, as I said before, like you're going to be in a situation when you're starting with Steph and Jimmy, and because defenses are going to probably, guard Moses more from the perimeter than Pods. Like Pods is going to be left, I think, with a heap of wide open catch and shoot threes. And now it's going to be up to him to knock them down. And again, 38% on nearly 5 attempts over the last 22 games. That's pretty nice. Robbie says, I think Steph, Jimmy, Dre, and JK could be a problem for 7 teams if we get to the playoffs. Yep, those 4 guys. And I feel like we shouldn't discount the depth still. Like, Pods, if Pods and Moody are playing like this and like they're your 5th and 6th guys, that's pretty nice. And even, dare I say, Buddy Hield as your 7th guy, that's like the perfect role for him if he's your 7th guy. And that's what I've been kind of asking for all season. If he's fine in that kind of role, it's just when he becomes like the 2nd or 3rd option on offense where you have real question marks. Empire says, I feel like we could probably be I feel like we would probably be 1-4 without Jimmy during this stretch. Possibly. It's hard to say. Like, I suppose you look at a game like this and think, oh, well, you won by 26, so you'd probably win anyway with Wiggs rather than Butler, but that doesn't take into account just how much of an impact and just how much confidence the players are getting from having Jimmy around. And so I don't know. Who knows? But right now, I'm glad that Jimmy's on the team. As much as it still sucks that Wiggs isn't part of the team. Like, there's no doubt about that. But I think Warrior fans have probably started to move on a lot quicker than what they otherwise might, given what Jimmy's been able to produce here through his first 5 games. Cornelis says, man, Looney did dirty work, second chance points. He knows the offense in and out. TJD needs to make his layups. Yeah. Valley says, definitely avoid Nuggets. I low-key don't want to see the Clippers either. The Clippers tend to have our measure, which is unfortunate, disappointing, but at the same time, I don't think we're going to be matching up with the Clippers in the first round because I don't think they are going to, I think both teams can make the playoffs, but they'll both be in the bottom 4 seeds of that bracket. So maybe both teams can spring a surprise in the first round and meet up in the second round of the playoffs, but I don't think it's highly unlikely that we're going to face the Clippers in the playoffs, put it that way. Young West says, I like Post's passion on the court. His dad was at the Kings game for his first ever in-person NBA game. Yeah, that's really special, in the fact that he was able to show out in that second quarter. Man, aside from Steph, right, I'm not sure there's a guy on the team that I trust more for an open three. Like, if you had me right now and we were in an NBA game, and as Max Kellerman likes to say, in terms of, I want Iguodala, the death beam is pointed at Earth, and one Warrior not named Steph Curry has to make an open catch and shoot three, I might take Quentin Post. Like, dead set. That guy's just not missing from three at the moment. Like, what is he, like 50% nearly through his, rookie season so far? Like, he must be like 45%. Again, just to check this. Quentin Post is at, he's at 42.4%, but still, like, that's super impressive. And another 3 for 3 in this game. Just unbelievable. Thendex says we have the easiest remaining schedule left. Yeah, certainly provides optimism for what this team can do, and hopefully pushing up into the top 6. Ideally, 7 or 8 wouldn't be horrific, particularly 7. Like, they're not going to lose 2 home games in a row from the 7 seed in the play-in tournament. I just cannot see that happening whatsoever. Hopefully, I don't get proven wrong, but I'd be very confident that we win one of those 2 games. So, yeah, like, they've still got some work to do, but signs are all positive right now on multiple fronts. One, and the most important thing, is how they're playing. Like, they just dominated, again, a pretty talented Kings team who have their legit whole rotation. Like, the Kings did not have anyone on the injury report in this game. Right, so that is the full-strength Kings, and the Warriors just walloped them on their home floor and did it easily and controlled the game on both ends. So that's the most important thing right now. The other important stuff, though, in terms of the schedule, in terms of the Warriors' own injury issues and not having any, aside from Kuminga coming back here, and he should be back hopefully in the next 2 or 3 games. So the Warriors are in a good spot. Robbie says, I'm just happy we didn't blow a lead tonight. Again, as I said before, I feel like if you've got a lead going into the second half, like a double-digit lead, you feel a lot more confident now that you've got just being able to have Jimmy Butler or Steph on the floor at all times, right? I feel like that's just brings a level of trust now to this team. And again, a level of expectation that if this team does get up double digits and has a significant lead in the second half, like, I'm expecting you to win. You go, as I said at the very start, you go into a game like this against the Kings, who are good, but I just think the Warriors are better. Like, right now, I think they're a better team. And therefore, again, when you've got 2 star level players like Steph and Jimmy, who should be able to bring it every single night, and they didn't have to bring it tonight, but that was more so because of the way, the Kings guarded them, and because, other guys got so many open shots and were able to knock down shots, Buddy, Moses, and whatnot. Like, this is kind of what the team looks like right now. Like, they just look like a good team, and therefore, like, I expect them to win most games, and particularly, again, with the ease of schedule that they've got coming up here, like, I'm going to go into every game thinking they're going to win, basically. Like, I go into the game on Sunday against the Mavericks, who have, basically got no big men minus Anthony Davis. Like, the Warriors should absolutely be winning that game. Like, there's no excuses. Absolutely no excuses. And you could almost say that about every game that Jimmy Butler has played now. Like, they lost that game to the Mavericks before the All-Star break, but they should have won that game. They dead set should have. So, the refereeing was poor. They didn't play well as a team necessarily, but I just feel so much differently about this team over the last couple of weeks now than what I did in the couple of weeks leading up to it. Like, where I almost got to a point where watching the games became a chore. Like, it wasn't fun or exciting, and sport's supposed to be, something that takes you away from your life, I suppose. It is my life, but, any issues that you've got in life, sport is supposed to be that outlet to be able to enjoy, right, and get away from stuff that might be going on. And the Warriors weren't really doing that in a positive way, but now it feels like they are, because this team seems like it's turned a corner, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself as the Warriors remain 9th in the Western Conference. Empire says if Warriors win Sunday, it will be a 3-game win streak, and whose minutes is JK taking when he comes back? Well, I think I said before, Gee got 13 minutes and GP2 got 15 in this game. So there, to me, that's 27, 28 combined minutes there that I think you could almost remove those two guys from the rotation completely and just have Kuminga as that guy that's getting 27, 28 minutes. And then you kind of got a 9 of Moody, Butler, Draymond, Pod, Steph, Buddy, Looney, who did I say? Quentin Post will get some minutes, and Kuminga, and that's kind of your 9. And then if you want to go to some Guy Santos or you want to go to some Gary Payton II, then maybe they play sporadically, but I don't think that should necessarily be every game. Robbie says Moody is finally the 3-and-D player we need him to be. Yes, we're finally there. I feel like we're there. We might have said this before. We might have been gone early previously on, this is Moses Moody, but I just feel like I look at him now and I just think he's top 6 in the rotation. Even when Kuminga comes back, I think he's just top 6. And therefore, if you're top 6 in the rotation, you're pretty much playing 25 minutes a night. And that's just, I feel like that's who he is now. And we've finally reached that point. It took basically 4 years, but we've finally got there. So that's one of the biggest positives, no doubt. Him and Pods, particularly from this game, Buddy finding some form again, continuing his really good performance at the 3-point contest at All-Star Weekend. I think they're the 3 biggest positives, but there were so many positives, and there were just no negatives. Like, everyone played well, the team played well on both ends as a whole. I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you very much to those of you that have tuned in, particularly if you're in America, and I know it's late at night for you guys now, so it's much appreciated. If you're watching on replay, thank you as well. If you're listening via your podcast feed, then that is also much appreciated. Again, the Warriors play on Sunday against the Mavericks. Early game, which will mean an early live stream, as usual, like 3 hours after the game. I think the game starts 7:30 in the morning, my time. It's a 12:30 game afternoon, local time, 7:30 in the morning for me, which means there'll be a post-game live at 10:30 a.m. my time, or 3:30 local time. So looking forward to that one. Hopefully you guys can tune in. And once again, thank you very much for the support.